This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrill from Equidaily.com, Steve Vick from Sirius and XM's At the Races. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Seth.
How was it still
holiday.
dusting as it came?
I don't know. It's just ugly and gray and depressing. And
It has been a while since the sun's been.
yeah, we haven't seen too much sun.
But yeah, we're in the holiday week, so there will be a dearth of racing in the middle of the week. Some schedules have been shifted around Gulfstream a couple of Tuesdays, including this coming Tuesday. They'll work that out as they will miss some days, of course, because of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. No programming here either of those days, but as I say,
You're going to come in anyway, though.
I'm here every day.
You're just going to be sitting here. Just he'll be watching. He'll be watching. It's a Wonderful Life.
Remember, speaking of crazy programming, was it Channel 11 or Channel 9, which for a while on Christmas
Yule
Day?
log. The Yule log. Let me tell you something. They brought it
Do they
back.
still
I
do-
think.
I was gonna say they still do it.
The Yule log is a long-standing
And
tradition.
for people who don't remember that or never saw it, for years, it was either 9 or 11. PIX, I think it was PIX. I think it was 11.
Yeah.
All day on Christmas, they just had a shot of a fireplace on a loop, and it just played all day.
with music, with holiday music, and people loved it.
Yeah, you say with holiday music like that made it better. That made it more watchable. But, yeah.
Well, listen, how is it any different than watching the scrolling the scrolling rosters of races here on our channel
with holiday music?
With holiday music, exactly.
This time of year. All right, let's get into some of the news. A few minutes, we'll take a look at some of the stakes action from yesterday, and towards the end of the show, hit on some of the year-end. Pulled up some of the older division races that made that older division look so promising through the first 4 months of the year. We have a look at some of the highlights from that division, as I say, January through April. But news, New York, this popped out, and this is a little bit of a concern because New York, the headline in the racing forum, New York racing in jeopardy over workers' compensation dispute, and it threatens to shut down racing on January 1st. Horsemen are balking at what? A 59% increase in the premium they must pay to cover work-related injuries. And that's just, they're talking about the insurance cost of 2015 going up to $6.7 million from $4.3. I mean, that's just an incredible hike. And the talks are underway, but there is a threat to New York racing on January 1st.
The workman's comp, for those of you that are not involved in ownership in New York, workman's compensation is a just odious and incredibly expensive proposition already. And now looking to increase it over another 50%. For instance, as somebody running horses in New York, you already are paying $840, I think it was $840 this year. That comes right off the top. I mean, that you immediately have to pay just to be involved. Then there's the horseman. Then there's a per diem as well. It comes out of purses. It's an incredibly imposing surcharge on everybody. And of course, the instant reaction, Seth, is from the numbskulls who have no idea even what this is. They think it's health insurance. It's not health insurance. And obviously anybody amongst the people that are screaming, oh, of course the horsemen are complaining. You're obviously someone who doesn't own a business and you don't understand what these costs are. And for those that say, oh, well, the purses are so high in New York, it should be easy for, it's not the way this works. And there's a number of barns who are already struggling in terms of the trainers to keep up with the workman's compensation expenses. I mean, this is really an over and above imposition.
And anytime you have a set cost that goes up by 50, and this is incremental, 59%.
Over the existing high expense.
But they're talking about the three ways that the workers' compensation is funded in New York, and one of them talked about in the Dave Grenig article in the Racing Forum. Trainers pay 95 cents a day per stall allotted, a fee that could almost double in 2015. Think about that, essentially $1 a day. What if you've got 20 horses, and you're talking $1 a day for the entire year? You know, that's thousands of dollars, and they're now talking about that doubling perhaps next year.
That's only a part of it.
And that's
only a portion of this.
And that's maybe the smaller part.
The guy who I would look to for some analysis of this is Steve Zorn, who understands these financials very well. And this is just a ridiculous situation. And hopefully they can find, and I think it's the New York State Insurance Fund is the current carrier on the workman's comp, and I think they're looking for some other alternatives in terms of choices. But this is brutal. I don't know what the answer is going to be. They've only got 10 days to figure it out.
And the article does mention, Violet said one of the, Rick Violet, who's obviously involved in this, said one of the options is bite the bullet and pay the first 3 months and then try to work.
Yeah,
because as the article says, time is running out for making a decision.
You know what we should do? Maybe, and of course, the first of the year, or the first show we do is probably not the best place for this. I would love to get somebody like a Zorn on, who has operated a stable for many years, has a real handle on the economics, to explain exactly what these kinds of things are. The other thing we could do, maybe we'll do this, Seth, pull up the report that you get from the Horseman's bookkeeper and show everybody how the purses end up getting chopped up and all the things that you contribute to. And it is, I mean, not endless, but it is a pretty remarkable how much is already being taken out by the various things that you have to pay for.
And that's a good point people might not realize. As an owner, you would know this. That stuff doesn't make it to your pocket. No. It's done by the bookkeeper. All of the money that's parsed out is parsed out by them before it gets to you.
You bet. I mean, you got the jockeys, you got aftercare, you've got this compensate the workman's comp. People think, oh, look, they won 60% of that big purse. When it gets to you, it's 48% of that purse. So this is really, I mean, an issue. Everybody thinks that there's like these windfalls of money. It's not that simple. There's a lot of mouths to feed, quote unquote, and a lot of areas to take care of in the sport. And these things just keep getting heaped on. And the state legislature, with some of the things that they've taxed on in terms of impositions they've put on the horse player, taking money out of the handle and glomming into takeouts. It's blood from a stone at a certain point.
Yeah, and as they say, whenever you have rates that move 50% incrementally, you understand that.
But cost of living adjustments and so forth. But this is tough.
All right, some other news in New York over the past week. Wednesday, it was announced the sighting board casinos were announced. Capital OTB was involved in the one in Rensselaer, but the one in this area goes to Schenectady. But the one that the horse racing industry will look at is the casino they're siting up between Syracuse and Rochester, which was the area dubbed Southern Tier. Well, the Southern Tier got zapped a couple of times. No fracking announced the same day, but then they don't get a casino out there. Instead, it goes to how between Syracuse and Rochester gets put into that Southern Tier mix. I don't know, but no casino for them. But maybe more importantly, this is going to have a real effect, and it was written about in the Blood Horse on Finger Lakes. And the president of the Finger Lakes Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association quoted in a Blood Horse article, racing at Finger Lakes will be gone in 2 or 3 years, potentially, if things aren't looked at with a little bit of an eye towards how this casino could have a real negative effect on Finger Lakes racing.
Now, there seems to be a number of, I won't say violent reaction, but some real dissatisfaction, including the squealing pig, Jeff Gural, who grandstandingly talking about how altruistically he was so concerned for the southern tier, and he got involved because he was encouraged by the state government, and he just doesn't understand it. Obviously, Binghamton could have used this and would have poached from Pennsylvania, from Scranton, the Wilkes-Barre corridor, Tioga Downs, which was the Gural bid. It is odd, and considering that the people in Tier, in that Waterloo area, they didn't seem that interested in having this. This is a Rochester businessman's concept for that facility. That one, I didn't really follow that closely, frankly. The one that was of real interest, we're talking about this hurting Finger Lakes. If you're a fan of standard bred, certainly the Monticello project, the Monterey project is a real positive.
Yeah, because they're involved with Monticello.
Oh yeah, that's one of the great stories underneath all of this. Those of you that are harness fans probably followed Joe Feraldo, the head of the Monticello Horsemen, who went absolutely toe-to-toe, who goes toe-to-toe with Gural all the time, who has called Gural out for the phony that he is. But Feraldo was basically at the throats of the Monticello operation and would not quit until a deal was forged that enabled the harness horsemen to benefit from this casino, because Feraldo saw around corners. I mean, if he isn't the smartest guy in the room, I don't know who is. But they come out, the horsemen in Monticello come out looking like geniuses, lining up behind Joe Feraldo. So, congratulations to them, frankly. We'll see what happens in the central, in the Leatherstocking region, and with this other situation that affects Turning Stone and Finger Lakes and so forth. But the one here in the area, the East Greenbush community, they were completely against this. So I think they ended up very happy. I saw the Rensselaer mayor, who was bitterly disappointed with this outcome. And for Schenectady, it does seem to be something that could be of big benefit to what is a beautiful city that has obviously, by virtue of what's gone on with General Electric, has been on its heels for an extended period.
And it was kind of interesting because the one out between Syracuse and Rochester, I read yesterday, they've essentially already started work. They've moved into heavy equipment. I was under the impression this was just the siting. They still have to give okays, and I think there were also environmental impact.
Well, there may be some, and there may be some legal. There may be
and
some.
I wonder if they're not
wrangling.
thinking, well, maybe we get in, we put some things in the ground, and now all of a sudden it's too hard to tell us no after that.
Yeah,
but I found it interesting that they had already. Well, decision was made on Wednesday, and they had the heavy equipment in on Friday out there.
Well, you may end up with injunctions yet, and with
yeah, you would think because the
something
local
tells
group
me-
is still pushing against it too. They're
tells
on
me
some
this
farm
isn't
country,
over.
and they're not. Other news of note up here in our area, because Travis Stone from our area, right up the road,
great.
And Travis Stone has been named the announcer at Churchill Downs. And talk about a guy that's bouncing around the past few years. He followed Larry Colmus after he left Monmouth. Travis Stone moved in there, and then most recently he was announced as the substitute caller down at New York, the NYRA tracks, and folks have certainly heard him over the past few weeks, but now he's been announced as the announcer at Churchill Downs, follows Larry Colmus again.
What's funny about this, and everybody's happy for Travis Stone, who is so well liked and admired in his race calling profession. The funny thing to me, Seth, is he should have gotten the Churchill job 6 years ago, when they had those open auditions, you'll recall, and they ended up out of nowhere giving it to Mark Johnson, and not to deride Mark Johnson, he just was such an ill fit for Churchill, and it was such a mistake, and I think everybody recognized that right away. So when Johnson's contract basically was expiring, it became clear they were going to move in a different direction. They could have had Travis Stone from day one. And he probably, I thought during those auditions, there was Larry Colmus, there was Mark Johnson, Travis Stone, there was Bobby Newman from Calder, and I'm going to forget who the fifth was, but by all rights, Stone should have been in this job for 6 years. It took Larry Comas, 20 years at Monmouth to get to Churchill. It only took Travis 4 months. He was at Oceanport for 10 minutes and ends up moving in to that coveted spot at Churchill. So congratulations to Travis.
Which now opens up Monmouth. Again, the dominoes fall, and we'll see what happens out there as well.
Exactly.
Change up. All right, let's head to
a couple more news, two more news things. New York.
Okay, go, hit on.
Let's get the rest of the New York news and two negative stories. The David Canizzo positive and the 45-day suspension if he doesn't have any issues between February and 15 and February 16. This is not, there's different kinds of suspensions and different kinds of violations. There's overages of legal medications, and those will happen. I mean, when you got horses with different metabolism and you've got 72-hour windows, 48 hours, 5 days a week, withdrawal times, there's going to be evidence of legal medication lingering in a system. This was not a legal medication lingering in a system. This is a huge embarrassment, and it's amazing how it's been sort of brushed aside. And I thought Canizzo's own response to this, I got bigger things to worry about. Yeah, like keeping Darvon, an illegal painkiller, out of the shed row. And I didn't buy the explanation and the flippant attitude, I've got bigger things to worry about. Get a positive between now and February of 16, you'll really have something to worry about.
And his explanation was it was contamination.
If it was a contamination, that's kind of funny, considering that two of them were in Saratoga and then one in Belmont. This really, I thought was a pretty ugly incident, and it was kind of sloughed off and more or less just shrugged off by a number of people, and it's one of these areas where somebody seems to deign who gets persecuted and who doesn't when these things occur. And when they're overages of legal meds, that are basically things that athletes are being given, to help them, anti-inflammatories for the most part, that's one thing. And you're going to get those. Good horsemen are going to get those. Darvon is a class 3 painkiller, and I don't buy the explanation, and particularly am miffed at how it's just, I've got bigger things to worry about. Not really. This is something I'd worry about. I thought this was really a bad incident, to be honest.
And you're talking about the reaction. The penalty is legitimate. The penalty is 45 days is.
Well, not even the penalty is a mitigated penalty based on so this is sort of like the situation where O'Neill had to come back and sit because there was the retroactive circumstance that added to the penalty.
But I don't think 45 days is a light penalty. I think
it's a light penalty for a class 3 cane.
Compared to what we see.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, I don't know. I thought this was a bad incident, and one that I thought would have received more wrath.
All right.
Put it that way. Finally, got to mention, and so saddened on Thursday, the passing of Disco Rico, and obviously for the DeRico family, who anybody in New York racing has come to know over the last couple of decades, this is their big horse, and he was really a terrific blue-collar, multiple graded stake winner. And then not only did he outperform on the racetrack, he then outperformed as a sire. Disco Rico has been able to elevate the common mares. I mean, he gets real backyard breeding mares, and he's thrown nothing but runners now for 10, 12 years. and he'll be missed. There's a lot of people that were so eager and on an annual basis would run to Disco Rico, and he was having that issue, the laminitis and the front hoof that has bothered him for off and on for years, and had Joe DeRico on the show on Friday to say goodbye. He was a real character too. This was a really fun horse to be around. He was a bit of a Don Juan. He was not a stallion that would just come in and savage the mares. He wanted some intimate fun time. He was he was a real character, Disco Rico, and he'll really be missed.
17 years old.
Yeah.
Laminitis.
Tough.
All right, we'll head to our break. When we come back, take a look at some of the stakes from yesterday. A little bit later on, take a look back at the first few months of the year in the handicap division that was so promising back then. All of that when Loose on the Lead continues. Stay tuned.
Go Zepper kicking clear, and Go Zepper is pulling away impressively.
Hysterical Lady, Ginger Punch to win it.
And it's Wilco in front, and he's going to pull off a huge upset here.
But it's Round Pond going on to take the distaff.
Awesome again. Sire of 10 Grade 1 winners, 4 Breeders' Cup champions, and 4 multimillionaires standing at Adena Springs.
I'm Anthony Mormino, and after more than 30 years, HNC is moving. HNC and all your favorite OTV TV programming is moving from Time Warner Cable 12 to Digital Channel 8.2. Along with WXXA, you'll also be able to watch us on Comcast Cable 323, Midtel Cable 271, Mid-Hudson on 191, Verizon Fios 467, and Time Warner Cable on Channel 1250. For more information, log on to capitalotv.com.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what could be better than that? How about 2 Stadium Cafes? There's also the Westside Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not 1, but 2. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrow and Steve Bick. We had a little bit of stakes action yesterday that was interesting. The highlight of the day was the Los Al Futurity Grade 1 event, and we'll look at that in a few minutes. But first up, wanted to pull up a race. Only 4 horses in here, but it was the Sugar Bowl yesterday down at the fairgrounds. There was a field of 5 entered. There was a scratch of Smudge. But just wanted to show this. We'll watch the stretch run. It'll be number 5, Cinco Charlie, winning at 2-5. And I wanted to show it because Cinco Charlie, one of those horses I think is a 3-year-old, will bang around and be a little bit interesting for Steve Asmussen. As a 2-year-old, this was win number 5 in 8 starts, had won the Bashford Manor, had finished 3rd in the Sanford earlier. Prior to this race yesterday, had won the Lewis up at Laurel. So it's a stakes performer for Asmussen. Again, this wasn't necessarily a super exciting race, but I think Cinco Charlie will be an interesting 3-year-old moving forward. Just, not at the top level necessarily, but I do think this horse will bounce around and be a stakes level performer. So as you see, Cinco Charlie wins by about half a length over Bourbon Cowboy in yesterday's Sugar Bowl.
He's a cool horse. He's a horse that's been around, pretty much all these second-tier stakes. He was very precocious early. I think this is really one of those classic Asmussen, B-level sprinters.
Exactly.
That'll get his share of grade 3 type sprints. That's what you'll see from him. I think it's notable that it's the Heilingbrats who were on their butt and who were pretty much finished. in the game. They got overextended. They had some business setbacks, and as big as the Heiligenbrodt operation was, it was in peril. And for those that don't seem to really know all that much about Steve Asmussen, you should know that Steve Asmussen more or less carried the Heiligenbrodt family during their financial difficulties and helped keep them in the game. Yet another. And actually, notably, we should also mention Steve Asmussen financially carried another prominent client of his that notoriously doesn't pay too often. And Asmussen deserves a lot of credit for hanging in there and helping the Heiligenbrodts through a difficult time. And it looks like the pendulum has swung back in a positive direction. And the Heiligenbrodts had a lot of horses in training at one time. I'd say hundreds. And so it's great that they've got themselves a stake horse again this year, and are buying horses and are still in the business.
Yeah, this one bounces over $250,000 in earnings yesterday.
Yeah, no, this is the horse last Sunday. I mean, because we didn't get a chance. We mentioned it at the end of the show. The horse of Clark Brewster's. Bayard, that won the Springboard Mile. There's another example, that a horse that was precocious early, won at Saratoga, broke his maiden, and instead of going for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and thinking that, we've got ourselves a great Grade 1 prospect, they kind of recognized, and Clark Brewster has echoed this, that he's a nice horse, and they weren't going to throw him to the wolves, and so Brewster, who's from Oklahoma, who's from Tulsa, they targeted the Springboard Mile, and they went home to Oklahoma, and he won. Did he win the Clever Trevor, or did he get beaten the Clever Trevor?
Yeah, they reversed positions. The top two finishers in the Springboard Mile had been 1-2 in the Clever Trevor in reverse order.
Exactly, the horse of C.R. Trouts.
Yeah,
and we'll see. Again, that's another horse. They think they're going to go to the Lecomte with him. And the Lecomte shaping up, by the way. I had Neil Howard the other day, and he's got Eagle, who is a real horse for Mr. Farish.
Yeah, Brian Nadeau, sitting on Handicapper's Report, said he got Eagle at a decent price out in the Vegas Future Bowl, and that's a horse maybe keep your eyes on. Speaking of derbies, Tropical Park Derby yesterday.
Look at you, spanning the globe.
On the grass at
athletic
Gulfstream.
competition.
I talked a little bit about it last week. Boy, nice full field of 12 in the Tropical Park Derby. We will watch the stretch run here. And I mentioned this horse, the eventual winner, as a potential horse to keep your eyes on, Skyflight from Mark Casse. Probably he's going to have to step it up a little bit, but with only 3 starts under the belt, that was going to be possible. And it is Skyflight at 9-2, winning the number 1 horse. Cement Clement, the number 7 horse, runs second at 25-1. I thought that horse was interesting, and that price was a little bit surprising. The favorite, number 9, Smooth Daddy, at 5-2, will run third in here. But again, only 3 starts coming into this. Skyflight wins. Mark Casse keeps up what has been a really good, probably last 3 months or so.
Absolutely, and of course, his top client, one of his many top clients actually these days, Jack Oxley. And of course, Oxley never met a Sky Mesa he didn't like, and he bought this one for just $80,000 and seems to be progressing very quickly since the September debut, is now on a 3-race win streak. And this was a really fun group. I tried Cabo Cat for Mark Hennig, and he had a little bit too much to do and was a little wide. And not the easiest track to make up ground on the grass, certainly at Gulfstream, but a nice race. And then, of course, you had the Oaks that finished up the card, and talk about a difficult post and working out a trip. Javier Castellano and Sandiva from way outside, from the 14 hole. And you're going to see if you can pick up the 14, who's in the back right now, and is going to trip out and pick its way through. Here you go. There's your 14 up on top.
Party Now runs second as the 2-1 favorite. And Shug's horse, the number 4 Dancing House, who I wasn't quite sure what to do with, runs third.
Shug's horse was Party Now.
Party Now. What?
Dancing House was Kieran.
Oh, you're right. Shug's, yeah, you're right.
Pace in here was just dawdling, and never really, the pace kind of didn't ever materialize. Usually you would think with a 14-horse field, even when you look at a pace scenario, you usually figure the pace is going to find itself just because there's too many horses, and people are going to want to find position early. But in this case, 24-3, 49-1, 113. You can understand the two horses that were up front. But Castellano with a heads-up job coming from the 14-hole to get early position outside, and ends up with a win, and the Tropical Park portion of the Gulfstream season coming to a close.
Yeah, and so far, nice full fields there early in what is the championship meet. But yeah, once you get past the first of the year, you really get to the championship meet. I'm going to be interested to see if these field sizes hold together. But with the number of horses
reason why they
have
shouldn't.
there, yeah, you have to feel they will. All right, and again, the highlight of the day yesterday, probably not from a betting standpoint by any means, but just from some potential and grade 1 event, $500,000, Los Alamitos Futurity. We'll watch the stretch run, and it will be a ding-dong battle. Number 3, Dortmund, will win as the 3-5 favorite for Bob Baffert, but we'll have to hold off number 5, Firing Line, and number 4, Mr. Z. Mr. Z, of course, for Wayne Lukas. But Dortmund gets it done here in the Los Alamitos Futurity.
There's a lot going on in this race, and we probably should have watched this from the break. Dortmund, for starters, this is his 3rd career start. You'll recall that he went to Churchill Downs for that allowance opportunity off the maiden win. He is 17 hands. He is in the size range of point given. This is a big, lanky, tall colt. And if you look at the picture that is out there of the 3 of them across the track, you can see how tall and upright this horse is. A racetrack like Los Alamitos, I'm prefacing this to explain to the people who are absolutely clueless, considering that you're dealing with the Twitterverse of morons who said, oh, if this horse was legitimate, he would have won by a dozen. Right. In his 2-turn debut on a racetrack that's built like a paper clip, a big, bulky horse like this is at a disadvantage. The sharp turns on the elongated racetrack work against this horse. And as you can see, he's a little one-paced in here. He'll be a lot different back at Santa Anita, and as he continues to grow and mature. The funny thing about this, and the critics out there, who just love every opportunity they get to ridicule any emergent horse. I've never seen anything like it. Everybody says how much they love the game and they're waiting for stars. Here's a horse that's 3 for 3, wins a grade 1 in his 3rd career start, guts it out on a racetrack not conducive really to the circumstances for him, and we're going to find reasons why the horse is a fraud. It is just disgusting. And it's just amazing to me, Seth, and I'm tired of it. There's a lot to be excited about with this horse, and there's a lot to also be excited about with the runner-up, that Firing Line. Here's a horse by Line of David, and if you listen to the show during the course of the week as the field came together, Arnold Zetcher's $240,000 colt looked like a horse that really had to be taken seriously. You also knew that Mr. Z was going to be serious, given everything that's gone on with Lukas. The win last week with Take Charge Brandy. Here's a horse that's very seasoned, making an 8th start, and is a tough-as-nails type, just like Take Charge Brandy. So you had 3 serious horses lining up here, and you end up with a absolutely thrilling performance from all 3, and people are going to find a way to deride everything about the race. It is just, you'd think people would be excited to end the 2-year-old season this way.
Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts? Does he put himself into the eclipse picture?
I think it's a little too late for that. I mean, I think he'll get some votes. I mean, maybe he's a 3rd place type finisher. I mean, what do you do about American Pharaoh? What do you do with Texas Red? I mean, those are your 2 obvious players. Even Mr. Z, who danced a lot of dances, he's a horse that's going to get some 2nd and 3rd place considerations. I don't think
anybody has jumped off the page so far, and now this guy.
This is a serious player.
And earlier this week, the Las Vegas Future odds came out. He's the shortest price on those future odds.
Well, and he went off at 9-1 in the first round of Derby futures, and that was on the basis of his maiden win and of his allowance win that weekend at Churchill. That's another thing. The horse is, in his second career start, Baffert puts him on a plane and flies him out to Churchill. And now he's actually talking about, and Baffert's funny this way. If you've heard him talk about how he handles his stakes contenders, he basically just keeps them all training, and then he makes the call as necessary based on what's upcoming and where the races unfold, whether they're at Fairgrounds, whether they're at Sunland, when he goes to the Sunland Derby. And this year he said he's going to consider. Well, he said he certainly would go to the Bluegrass. It's been several years since he used the Louisiana Derby. You'll remember he sent a lot of horses, Calf Wayne and Wimbledon. He won with Wimbledon and others. So watch Baffert and how he takes the 2-year-olds and keeps them separate. And this is a horse that, Jay Privman, for those of you that, it's funny. This is a horse, he broke his maiden, let's see, November 2nd. What's today's date? December 21st. So you're talking about a horse that has emerged in 6 weeks and has done all this in 6 weeks. And a horse that physically has got to still yet grow into himself. I mean, he had no business winning at 6.5 furlongs. And, then the one-turn mile at Churchill, and now on a very difficult racetrack that isn't conducive to his
That's
heft.
worth noting, throwing into the close loss yesterday, close win yesterday, too. There was 2 cross-country trips in there in a 6-week period.
Right.
So for a 2-year-old.
No, this is a horse. All 3 of these. I will say one thing. If you read the article that Jay Privman wrote recapping it, and for those that don't really understand what they look at when they're watching these races, you can read Jay's piece and you'll get quotes and you'll get an understanding. One red flag for Mr. Z in there was the way Mike Smith said he was getting out. And Smith said his left arm was absolutely burning from having to keep Mr. Z's head as straight as possible because the horse wanted to get out. And Rafael Bejarano, it's too bad we don't have the head on because I didn't notice this on the pan shot. It wasn't until I read the comment that I went back and sought out to try to see what was happening. And Bejarano said the same thing. He thought it cost him the race, that if Firing Line had not had Mr. Z leaning on him, trying to get out, that it would have been easier for Firing Line to get forward. That's a horse, that Firing Line. Simon Callahan, for those of you that don't know much about Callahan, he's mostly a turf trainer. He's a very conservative guy. And if you go and watch and take a look at his horses and the times of the workouts of a Simon Callahan, you won't see anything like you see on this horse. Take a look at these numbers. It's unbelievable. Going back to October, 46 flat, Bullet, best of 57 at Santa Anita. 47 flat, 5th of 44. 59-4, 6th of 44. 59-4, and then, prepping for this, a best of 65 Bullet in 58-4. Simon Callahan hasn't worked a horse in 58-4, I guarantee you, in his entire training career. So this is a horse, not only that, this horse is by Line of David, who is a $5,000 or $6,000 stallion at Spendthrift. This horse costs $240,000 as a yearling, as a 2-year-old in training. He was a $65,000 weanling. So this horse oversold from day one. This is a really nice horse, Firing Line. So this is a race that, I mean, if Mr. Z gets a rest and hopefully isn't, hasn't been too Lucasified, with some overuse, because when you have a horse getting out like that, that's not a good sign. And that's a sign that problems are coming. So we'll see how Mr. Z squares away. But Firing Line and Dortmund come out of this smelling like roses.
Yeah, again, it was a short field, so it wasn't much of a betting event necessarily, but it has some implications for next year. All right, we'll head to our next break. When we come back, as promised, going to take a look back at some of the Stakes in the handicap division that got us going through the first 3 or 4 months of 2014 and showed some promise in that older division, which kind of fell apart by summertime, but had plenty of early promise early in the year. Also,
are we going to discuss our Eclipse Awards?
At the end of at the end, we'll
Seth's very excited. He doesn't show it too often, but he's an Eclipse voter now.
And I got mine in the mail yesterday, in fact.
Exciting, huh? It's like,
yeah, really.
Like Navin Johnson. The new phone book's here. The new phone book's here.
Exactly. All of that right after this. Stay
I'm
tuned.
somebody now.
I don't know. You hang around here. What do you think?
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
We're moving. OTB TV is moving. Beginning January 1st, racing across America and all your favorite OTB TV programming is moving from Time Warner Cable Channel 12 to Digital Channel 8.2. Along with WXXA, you'll also be able to watch us on Comcast Cable 323, Midtel Cable 271, Mid-Hudson 191, Verizon Fios 467, and Time Warner Cable on Channel 1250. For more information, log on to CapitalOTB.com and we'll see you there.
I didn't want to get just any degree after high school.
Horse racing has always been my passion.
I was already a lawyer.
When I was young, my dad took me to the races. The sound of the crowd. I still remember.
I'm 40, and I don't want to stay in a career I don't love.
I want to follow my passion.
Follow your passion at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrow and Steve Bick. And we'll head into, as promised, a little recap early in the year, because we talked about it the last few weeks, certainly, but going back a couple of months, the handicap division was so promising early in the year and then just kind of fell apart. And the races we were talking during the break, the races we picked really kind of demonstrate that. And we'll go back and the guys can kick off the replay anytime now, going back to early in the year and January 18th, in fact, Sunshine Millions Classic. You know, it's an ungraded race, obviously, but it kicks off the year for Mucho Macho Man, who was coming out of the Breeders' Cup Classic the year before. So we're going to watch Mucho Macho Man, the number 4 horse, get it done here in the first start of the season and get it done very, very convincingly. He wins by, chart says 14 lengths as the 1-9 favorite. So Mucho Macho Man comes out of the Breeders' Cup Classic win, follows it up in the Sunshine Millions, starts 2014 seemingly showing he is still in very, very good form. And so again, that promise just absolutely seemed to indicate handicap division in some pretty good shape with the Breeders' Cup Classic winner coming back in a race like this. Subsequently, he runs fourth in the Santa Anita Handicap, which we'll see in a few minutes, and then disappears. So Mucho Macho Man, a lot of promise early, but we didn't see much of him after this big, big win.
And it was nice of the Reeveses and Kathy Ritvo to even try to come back. They didn't have to. And Frank Stronach, of course, who bought in as well for Mucho Macho Man's stallion career, they all were willing to even do this. And typically you win the Breeders' Cup Classic, especially as a 5-year-old, and okay, it's time to go to the shed. So it was nice to have him. And I think also in this particular spot, I think they were trying to erase the bad experience from the previous years.
Oh, yeah, you're
Sunshine
right. Yeah.
Millions Classic. Remember the wet track?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, do we even have a horse left?
Yeah.
You forget that that's the way they started the previous year. But here he comes down the stretch. I was here that day. It was, of course, the other part of this was it was the night of the afternoon ahead of the Eclipse Awards. And so the Eclipses were going to be handed out that evening. And it was just too bad. But look, Mucho Macho Man, even the fact that he was coming back, and they felt that there was more to do and they wanted to share his legacy, in addition to whatever he does as a stallion. The Georgia Horse Racing Coalition story, Seth, continues to evolve, and it does look like the Georgia legislature is very likely to approve the potential here for advanced deposit wagering gambling in Georgia, adding Georgia a significant new jurisdiction. I mean, think about it. Think about a municipality. Atlanta's what? The 8th largest city in the country? Adding a jurisdiction like Georgia to ADW pools and potentially a small boutique racetrack, which they're trying to, they got the land, they got a design, they are eager to do this. And having maybe a couple of 3-week meets, Keeneland style, in the fall and in the spring. And that will be Mucho Macho Man's greatest legacy, is that whatever handle contribution could come out of the state of Georgia, it's thanks to him, because he galvanized the effort behind Dean and Patty Reeves, Jack D'Amico, and everybody else that's been working toward getting racing and gambling in Georgia. So he's a great story for so many different reasons.
And again, disappeared out the Santa Anita Handicap, but worked in June, and that's where he came up with a bruise, and the retirement was announced in summertime. But only one more race after that one we just saw. Another horse that really showed some potential early on, and we thought, oh, what a nice addition to the handicap division he will be. And this is the last look at him in 2014, but I pulled up some Equibase information. Lee has worked within the past couple of weeks, 12-14 work at Payson Park. So we'll look for Lee to come back in 2015. But going back February 9th, the Don Handicap Grade 1 event, we will watch number 8 Lee win at 5-1. Running second in here, number 2, Will Take Charge. Will Take Charge was the 3-2 favorite in this race. Bourbon Courage, Uncaptured, Revolutionary were also in here. Revolutionary winds up finishing 7th in this race. Romance, 11th in the field of 11. This was a nice field, and Lee is going to win by just about 2 lengths, again at 5-1. As I say, comes into this off a win in the Hal's Hope. So putting those two together, it looked like Bill Mott and Claiborne had a really nice handicap division horse, but we never saw Lee again after the Don Handicap.
And what was funny about Lee the rest of the year was how they never put him away.
No, we were looking. Bernard Baruch, he was in main track only entrant. Woodward, we thought we were going to get him, didn't.
They kept. There was one thing after another that Mott kept kind of pulling, pointing toward, and it just kept getting put off and put off and put off. So it was very frustrating, and it was too bad. And it was one of those things where we didn't. If we had known in February, that would have been a different story. But we kept hearing that, oh, he's hanging in. We'll be back for this. We're gonna go for that. Whatever. So it was too bad that we never saw him. But hopefully we'll get him back.
And again, Will Take Charge, the number 2 horse, winds up running second in here. Pretty good second. Came off a win in the Clark. You didn't think this was a...
No, I thought this was the first indication that you had a problem.
Well, okay, because he was coming off a win in the Clark, and so I guess you could look at the second place finish maybe in that. Yeah, okay.
He Will Take Charge. Listen, everybody respects the career accomplishments of Wayne Lukas. The way Lukas is operating is it's a gauntlet for everybody, for all the horses, and he doesn't necessarily tailor the horse to what the horse is indicating, and instead he keeps pushing them through, and the ones that make it through the gauntlet come out the other side. But at a certain point, that other side is either a success, the way Will Take Charge more or less peaked in the Breeders' Cup, or they move on and end up retired. So whether it's Dublin or Optimizer or Strong Mandate, you got to think about Strong Mandate and the fact that you got to the end of the 2-year-old season after Breeders' Cup last year. Oh, he was Mr. Z of a year ago. So is Take Charge Brandy and Mr. Z, are they gonna come through the other side, or or like an Oxbow, or are they going to end up sidelined and we've seen their best? And Will Take Charge, it seemed that the lemon got squeezed a little too much, a little too often, and you could see that he was lacking that finish, that pop.
And again, looking back at the time, it seemed like a good effort to me because he was up against the bias at Gulfstream Park. Lee was out there making all the running, had to dispatch my boy Uncaptured, who I was on early in the year. But then Will Take Charge made a decent run. But yeah, I could see where you could say certainly that was the first step.
You could see that he was not. He just didn't have that same power. He's going to go on and win the Oaklawn Handicap, but it just, you could tell he was not the same horse.
All right, let's move on and look at the Gulfstream Park Handicap on March 8th, Grade 2 event, but it was the first race that kind of indicated Palace may be a real player in the division. We will watch the number 8 Palace win as the 6-5 favorite. Golden Ticket, the 2-horse, runs second at 7-1, and my man Uncaptured runs third at 14-1 in here. It's My Lucky Day runs fourth. So again, it was a field of only 7, but it was a pretty good field in here. And Palace Malice, the number 8 horse, only going to win by a head over Golden Ticket. So again, it's early. The real defining race for Palace Malice in his first 4 months of the year was the race down at New Orleans. But this gave an indication of what we might have from 4-year-old Palace Malice, who again is the number 8 horse in here, will get up by a head late.
Well, and of course, this kicks off a sequence of 4 straight wins that culminates in the thrilling win over Golden Sense in the Metropolitan, which he's going to try to reprise basically after some uncertainty about retirement and starting his career at Three Chimneys. Palace Malice is indeed back in training. He's down at Dogwood in South Carolina and making his way. If you heard Todd Pletcher with me earlier this week on Tuesday, I think it was, he had just gotten off the phone, in fact, with Cock Campbell, and Palace Malice very close to being shipped to Florida and joining Todd Pletcher at Palm Beach Downs. The sequence of the Gulfstream Park Handicap, the New Orleans, the Westchester, and the Met. And Palace Malice, at this point you think, not necessarily with this one, but as those wins start to pile up, you thought, gosh, I mean, here's something really exciting. We get a win from the Belmont. I think wasn't this the first win by a Belmont winner, the first graded stake by a Belmont winner?
Yeah, I think
there had been a long stretch. I forget what the details were, but a Belmont winner hadn't come back the next year and won a graded stake like in, I don't know, 15 years or some number. But it's kind of funny that we think that he's gone, and he's pointing for the Westchester. They're looking to come back in May and be ready for probably a 5-start campaign with big targets like the Met, the Whitney, and so forth, culminating with the Breeders' Cup Classic, if he can make it.
So a couple of these on the way back. Lee, Palace Malice, one that we won't be seeing again. We may only have time for this race, Santa Anita Handicap. Want to show Game On Dude, though. Really one of the nice races of the year, Game On Dude. And it kind of gave us a feeling that Game On Dude at age 7 was still going to be a player in the division. But this Santa Anita Handicap, really the last win we saw from him, second in the Charlestown Classic, subsequently Gold Cup at Santa Anita, fourth in the Pacific Classic, and then retired. But Game On Dude will be the number 7 horse here. Again, running second will be the number 1, Will Take Charge. Will Take Charge at 3-2. The favorite this day was Mucho Macho Man. Mucho Macho Man is the number 2. He'll run 4th at 6-5. 7-2 though was Game On Dude. The number 7 horse. We'll watch him come down the stretch, and Game On Dude, a nice performance in 158.17. And as I say, kind of felt like, oh, the old boy is back, and it's going to be a player in the division. But it didn't turn out to be that way as the year progressed.
Well, it turns out, of course, it's his final career win, and what a career! $6.5 million in earnings, 16 wins in 34 starts, another 7 seconds. Was he a little one-dimensional? I suppose. Yeah. You know what's interesting is what do you do with him in terms of being a Hall of Famer? Is he a Hall of Famer, or does he fall short because of his very pronounced shortcomings in his 3 Breeders' Cup Classic performances?
And I pulled up Steve Haskins' article on his retirement, and I'll quote from it. Because of his 2 inexplicably poor efforts in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Game On Dude, despite his numerous historic achievements, has been one of racing's most underappreciated horses. And again, he is defined as much by the nice victories as by a couple of the losses.
Yeah, agreed. And here you see Will Take Charge coming at him, and again, if Will Take Charge was Will Take Charge on that racetrack, of course, the previous year, the incredible finish with Mucho Macho Man here, he just looms and can't get to Game On Dude. And it certainly was an important and historic win. What was that, his third? That was his third big cap?
Yeah.
First horse to win 3 big caps, and ends up actually being also career high figure performance, 117 buyer.
And that was what stood out. You thought, oh, he's back. The really crazy time, the big number. A couple other races that we had scheduled, but we don't have time for. Palace Malice wins the New Orleans Handicap. Again, second in that streak, and really defined him. That was a nice performance. And then Will Take Charge does win the race at Oaklawn, but again, that was kind of a defining moment for him for the year, and he didn't move forward and join in that handicap division late in the year that we were hoping for, as it kind of all fell apart by summertime, and it was the last time we saw some of these horses. All right, we're getting towards the end of the show. You want to hit on the Eclipse before we wind up?
Well, and of course we'll have opportunity to make our final decisions and our final announcements. The deadline is January 5th, so we've got time. Of course, the Eclipse Awards. You get a little brochure, and they also have a site online that has got the updated. These are through December 14th, and you go through the PPs and you try to decide. Obviously, there's a number of categories, Seth, that are slam dunks. Main Sequence is your turf winner, undoubtedly, and Untappable is your 3-year-old filly champion. But there's
Work All Week. Is it
well, the Work All Week is interesting. That's the sprint division, and there's plenty of people who seem to be looking for alternatives. For whatever reason, I'm inclined. I mean, how do you argue with a horse that was undefeated on the dirt? 8 starts on dirt, winning all those sprints and capping it off.
He's not one that has a stellar jumps off the page, but there's nobody else to me. It seems like there's nobody else that I really hang my hat.
There's Private Zone, and for the people that are appreciating the Cigar Mile as an elongated sprint, there's some people that seem to want to put Golden Sense into this discussion. For me, it's hard to argue with the Illinois bred. Yeah. Then there's the one that is really the category of the greatest consternation. I brought this up last week with Lady Eli and Take Charge Brandy. And this is a brutal scenario. I mean, that one of them, and most likely now, Lady Eli is going to get outpointed. And it's really kind of a tragedy, because she is the more complete and the more impressive 2-year-old filly to me. But by virtue of this resume that Take Charge Brandy crafted and the amount of racing, it's hard to deny her the championship. I think a lot of people are going to do that, and it's really too bad, because Take Charge Brandy, it's one of those circumstances where in this country we still are not yet acclimated to the value and the significance of turf. And the turf horses, and I don't really understand it. I mean, her performance in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf is remarkable, and against an international cast. And if you heard Nick Luck with me this week, Nick Luck, probably the most respected presenter of racing in the world. Nick understands that Take Charge Brandy is going to win. He thinks not only is Lady Eli the best 2-year-old filly, turf or dirt, he thinks she's the best 2-year-old, period, male or female. That's a heady compliment from a guy like Nick Luck. Anyway, there are some intriguing decisions to be made, and the Horse of the Year situation with Cal Chrome and Bayern and Main Sequence continues to percolate out there. And
yeah, Bayer had a column within the past couple of days.
Andy Bayer yesterday.
Clear choice was Bayern.
I don't think it's that clear.
Certainly, as you read the remarks from around, I
No.
don't think voters are thinking it's that clear. All right, we'll wrap things up for this Sunday morning. Loose on the Lead. We're here every Sunday from 10 until 11 a.m. Don't forget questions, comments, or suggestions. We would love to hear from you. Loose on the Lead at yahoo.com. You can also visit our Facebook page. Again, we would love to hear from you. It is holiday week, so we'd like to take this opportunity to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the racing this week. And
get a Hanukkah greeting in there.
I said Happy Holidays. I was leaving that to you.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. A few more nights, a few more candles to light, as it were, and a few more latkes to eat. I should have brought you some latkes.
Oh, I like latkes.
I also was supposed to bring you a thing of antipasto. I made a big antipasto, and I was going to bring you a bowl, and I completely forgot. Instead, you'll have to do with that baked good.
I got the dessert,
baked good
so,
there from Bella Napoli.
That makes up for it.
Merry Christmas, Happy Healthy New Year. I don't think I'll be in next week. We're going to be traveling.
Okay, we'll make do without you next week. But again, everybody have a happy holiday, and we'll have more discussion about the Eclipse Awards and whatnot as the year wraps up. Always fun to take a look back, and we'll do plenty of that and look forward as well. Enjoy the racing this afternoon. Loose on the Lead does wrap up. Again, happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.